forgot the power glove! Ow!
Very few horror franchises work as well for me, are as consistent and as hilarious and are as horrifying as Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm a big fan of a lot of horror series. I've recently been watching Friday the 13th and Halloween, and while some of those have really good entries, like for instance Halloween 1 and 3 are both absolutely amazing and I love them both, and parts 4 and 6 of Friday the 13th are both really, really fun movies, none have been as consistent as A Nightmare on Elm Street. So it started back in 1984 or 83 when Wes Craven decided to make this film A Nightmare on Elm Street with New Line Cinema. New Line Cinema was about to go bankrupt, they didn't really have any money, and they really needed a hit, and Nightmare on Elm Street really was that hit. There's a really cool documentary on this whole series called Never Sleep Again. It's like 4 hours long, it's really amazing. But this horror film is just amazing to me. I think it's one of the most creative, innovative slashers. There's so many great scenes, like the school scene is really great.
Where's your pass?
Screw your pass.
Hey, Nancy! No running in the hallway.
The jail cell scene is really amazing. Wes Craven is such a master of guerrilla horror filmmaking, especially in that scene that's all done practical, where he is up on the walls fucking going around and flailing his body and convulsing, where this just horrifying screech is coming out. It's just such an interesting and compelling scene that you don't see in many horror movies, where it kind of just lingers on the shot and there's so much open space that it really does make them look so small, kind of like the shot in The Graduate that I really like. There's a lot of scenes that are pretty funny before they even went full comedy in the third one, and even parts of the second one are really funny, but before they went to the full departure of comedy, there's still some really good visual gags in here. I think Freddy's presence, mostly brought by Robert Englund, and the mystical way they shot it, with a lot of silhouettes and a lot of dark imagery, really helped the film bring its own presence rather than be an exchangeable killer like in something like The Slumber Party Massacre, where it's just a guy with a drill. This is an entity, and it's really terrifying and super effective on the parts of Wes Craven and Robert Englund. I think this film is really great start to finish. It starts with Nancy Thompson, this eventual trauma victim who's gone through quite a lot, and the mystical Freddy Krueger, who is later to be revealed a pedophile who the parents killed in a massacre that burnt up his face and sent him straight to hell, but he is back and he's going to kill the descendants of the parents who killed him for molestation. So I think this kind of underlying mystery on why Freddy Krueger is the way he is why the film works so well. And I think Nancy Thompson, played wonderfully by Heather Langenkamp, does a really great job. And the whole series is great, and I'm going to talk about the whole series excluding the remake, because I could talk in a whole video about the remake, quite honestly, and I probably will do that sometime because that is maybe my least favorite film of all time. A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. So a lot of people claim this to be an LGBT masterpiece or some kind of statement on LGBT rights and such, as it's very metaphorical. You can look into it a lot of different ways, and well, I agree it's there. That's actually my favorite part of the film, is all the metaphorical, symbolic, weird, offbeat, off-kilter stuff in it is really the best part of it, but for me the film is just not up to par with A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's a lot less effective when you put Freddy Krueger in the middle of a high school party jumping out of a pool. As funny as that is, it kind of removes all the tension. Our main character is no Nancy Thompson.
You're nothing. You're shit.
I really don't like him at all. He's annoying, he's whiny, the actor is not terribly charismatic, and it's not very well written, if you ask me. So I think that it's a very big step down, even though there's some really interesting parts. I think the opening is probably the strongest part about this film. It's this really fucking weird bus scene where Freddy Krueger is driving all these kids in a yellow school bus down to this very strange canyon, and it's a really strange and awesome scene. And it's a really strange scene that bookends the beginning and end of the film. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. This is one of my favorite horror films, unequivocally. It's so creative and so strange. There's the veins from the suicide attempt slits where Freddy Krueger is puppeteering them as this giant puppet master up in the skies, which is just this amazing scene of horror and some comedy. So, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Nancy Thompson comes back to this psych ward where a lot of Freddy Krueger's victims, who we didn't get to see yet, where there are survivors of Freddy Krueger. They've seen him, and this hospital thinks they're all crazy and there's something wrong with them, and Nancy Thompson gets called in. There's this very strange political subtext that I really enjoyed. There's this nurse from the one from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and there's this doctor, and there's this like weird love triangle. Everything about Dream Warriors is so strange, including the amazing music video. Dream Warriors has some of the best comedy in the whole thing. You've got the TV box kill, got Come and Get 'Em Bitch, which I think is when Freddy Krueger started saying bitch was in this one, like more as a catchphrase, more so than just a random thing he says, which I think is really awesome because the bitch catchphrase is so iconic at this point and so satisfying to hear.
You're big breaking TV. Fuck the prime time, bitch.
Until they eventually kill it and the Dream Child and make it unfunny.
Bon appetit, bitch.
So A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 has the weird psych ward thing. It's got all these interesting characters where they kind of go into this dream state where there's all these really amazing prosthetics that they make Freddy in this weird giant worm. There's all this weird stuff with this political subtext, and you got a bunch of likable characters who you can't help but root for. They go into the dream state and they become what they most wish, which I think is a very innovative statement and a very innovative way to bring the film more into this dream, because that is what the series is about. It's a nightmare on Elm Street, so which is what sets it apart from the Jasons and the Michaels. As much as I enjoyed those films as well, this is what sets it apart. A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. This film is very good as well. Not quite as good, and probably the last good one in the series, unfortunately. We'll get into the really bad, funny ones soon. Nightmare on Elm Street 4 takes off where we left off at the end of Dream Warriors, where all of the people are alive and fine, the survivors of Freddy Krueger, except for Nancy Thompson. So they all get killed off immediately. Just absolutely immediately. Oh no, it was a massacre. You've got the waterbed kill. Oh god, oh no, okay. Kill. Oh my god, it's a wet dream, it's a wet dream. Now the weirdest part about Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Master is this plot where it's this one Nancy Thompson-esque girl and her friends, and she handles Freddy very differently. There's this weird offbeat scene where the line is repeated for about 3 minutes because she's in this dream loop.
Here we are. Come on, we have to hurry.
What's going on?
I'm driving. Here we are. Come on.
And Freddy Krueger has a pizza with meatballs with people's faces on it. It's just an absolutely legendary sight to behold.
Usual. Oh, my favorite. Eeny, meeny, miny.
She jumps inside of a movie. This one has to be the most insane. Even though it's not my personal favorite, it's my third or fourth favorite, this one has to be the most insane, absolutely. It's just so ridiculous and so fun and such a blast. And there are some horror elements, but it's mostly a comedy thriller. And this is just a great, great film. The Dream Child is one of the most boring films I've ever seen. Really dumb. A lot of times when they try and bring more familial elements into horror films, it doesn't work for me. I liked Bride of Chucky fine, but Seed of Chucky was just so terrible, and not even in a fun way because it was so boring. I think that when you try and bring a kid into it, the jokes write themselves and the writers get lazy. And I think that is what happened for Dream Child. I cannot really even recite the plot of this. I don't really remember it, to be quite honest. It's so forgettable. This is the only one I'm not really going to talk about. There's nothing to talk about other than Freddy as a child. There's some bad effects, some funny stuff. Now we get into the last film of the Nightmare on Elm Street series before they did a weird reboot sequel meta thing, which I'll explain in a bit, which is really great, New Nightmare. This is Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. The people behind this film stated in the documentary they really wanted to make this clear that this was it. This was no more Freddy after this. We're donezo after this. And Freddy dies. Freddy has died in like 3 other movies. He died at the end of Dream Warriors, I think, the end of 2. I think maybe Dream Master. He dies a lot, but this one was it. This is a guilty pleasure kind of film, and I hate that term so much because you shouldn't feel guilty about things you like, but this film is definitely that for me.
Now I'm playing with power! Great graphics.
There's the Power Glove kill. I love that. Power Glove, bitch.
Hey, you forgot the power glove! Ow!
So it's all these really weird, dated, during the times, they were not dated, but they were trying to do something hip and new for the kids in this film with a lot of the kills and jokes, and it just does not age properly at all. So this film is funny, this film is wild. They go back to Freddy Krueger's hometown where or maybe not his hometown, but the town where he molested the kids, so that means it was unknown. It doesn't matter. The continuity is completely screwed up. Doesn't matter. Who cares? At this point, it's too late to care. Now we have a special installment. We have a New Nightmare, which is this weird meta thing that Wes Craven did where he had him be his own character, where Heather Langenkamp, the actor behind Nancy Thompson, has Freddy Krueger terrorize her as an actor. So it's this weird meta thing where Heather and her kid are being terrorized by Freddy Krueger, and it's this weird meta thing. Wes Craven wants Heather to make another film with him. She doesn't want to, she's hesitant, then she does, but the problem is then Freddy actually starts terrorizing her. So it's this really well written, very strange meta film that has all these really interesting statements on Hollywood. It's really well written, it's not particularly well shot, but Wes Craven does a good job behind and in front of the camera with direction, and Robert Englund is he's so amazing in every single Nightmare on Elm Street film. If that's the takeaway you get from this, is that Robert Englund is a legend and he's amazing in every single one of these films, so it doesn't really matter the quality of the film because Robert Englund is going to be amazing. So that about wraps it up for a Nightmare on Elm Street series. Love it to death. If you've seen these and you like the film, I would definitely recommend watching documentary Never Sleep Again, A Nightmare on Elm Street Legacy, or something along those lines. It's 4 hours long, tackles the entire series, as well as I didn't tackle here, which is Freddy vs. Jason, which I did not do because I didn't want to get into the whole Jason continuity. So that's it. Everyone have a happy Halloween. More content will be coming out at a faster pace than it has been already. I'll be making more quickies. I opened a Patreon. I'm gonna actually start doing this a little more seriously now. This was a blast to make. Long live Freddy Krueger and happy Halloween.
Hey, you forgot the power glove!